Dun, da, da, da.
Dun, da, da. Harvey, can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, we can hear you and we can see you when we're recording you.
When we starting, I was just checking out the system. Am I early or late?
You're 15 minutes late, but it's not a session, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
How you doing, Harvey? How are things?
I'm doing great. Things are good.
All right.
A big settings thing if I want to move that. Okay, there we go.
21st century, we're all getting used to it.
Okay, now do you hear this?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, you're good.
And Harvey's got a bass on his lap.
Okay, do you hear that?
Do we
No.
No, that we don't hear.
Well, okay, I'll put this over here.
That's the trusty P bass, I presume.
Yeah.
Here you go. See that, David? People still play Fender basses, David.
I hope so.
And look, that one has 4 strings on it, David.
Even.
That I can't count.
He can't count the right.
I go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
Well, I remember my first run-in with 6-string basses with Jack Bruce.
Right.
You know, and you know, as a you know, like an amateur guitar player as well, although I mean, I thought that the sound was great, you know, and that was really a cool thing, but you know, that was like what a guitar player would do. But Jack played it really intelligently, and now in this current lifetime, what bass players are doing is like it's another planet for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting to me about the Fender 6 is there's really very little way that you can play that instrument without a pick. Because the strings are so close together.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Here goes David with his 6-string bass.
All right.
Look at that, with the pink strings, no less.
Ooh.
But as you see, the string spacing is a jazz bass spacing, but with 6.
That's cool.
So
Cool.
yeah, it really is. And oddly enough, it's only 9.5 pounds, so it's actually lighter than some of the old 60s P basses.
Well, you got to do exercises to play that.
Exactly. So Harvey, I have a couple of questions for you. Did you ever work with Paul Lecca?
Oh, I recognize the name, but I don't think so.
Oh, because my sister was writing songs with him for like real pop acts, like the Brooklyn Bridge, the Peppermint Rainbow. Her name was Denise Gross. I was wondering if you ever ran across her.
No.
Okay.
No, I know the ilk.
Yeah.
That was in Broadway, New York.
Right. Well, it's funny because when I read your book, I grew up on 68th and Broadway. As a matter of fact, Don Lemon, Rick Murata, Terry Knight, Sidney Poitier, they all lived in the building. It was, 68th and Broadway, pretty midtown. And every club you talked about, it just brought back such memories. I saw the Blues Project at Cafe A Go-Go. I saw Soft Machine. McLaughlin, Intermounting Flame, the first record, they did a show at Cafe A Go-Go and all those places. And I played a lot of those places myself. So it really was a great walk down memory lane.
Well, the thing about that is it's a world encapsulated now in a book or in stories we pass on because it doesn't exist. Not so much that it's later in time or anything, it's just a concept. There's no room for it. I mean, what we did is we hung and we played and we jammed. We played 6 nights a week. We did all this stuff that's not available anymore. And I don't mean COVID. I mean prior to COVID.
Right.
You want 6 night a week gigs playing Wilson Pickett tunes or so all that kind of training and playing field to my knowledge, doesn't really exist that much. And it's kind of like why the music has kind of taken the direction it's taken, which is more insulated music.
Right, right. People don't play together as much. That's one of the things Marcus Miller was saying is my students can play with YouTube, but they can't play with each other. And, you know, you talk about those days, which you do so brilliantly in the View from the Bottom. My apprenticeship was what was known as top 40 bands. And in a top 40 band, right, which was essentially the same thing. You played R&B and you played blues and you played a jazz tune and you played, you know, a dinner set and a dance set.
That's it.
You know, the best apprenticeship you can have. But hey, let's go backwards, David and Harvey. Let's start with Elegant Geezer.
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that name? Are you referring to David and myself? No.
Well, I'm sure in a few years you might fit.
I think we fit now.
Yeah.
It came from a friend of ours, a great guitar maker named Chris Larson.
Okay.
He has Girl Guitars. You ever seen them online?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great guitar player as well. But we like sitting around just laughing about stuff, you know. And he said, yeah, just like Elegant Geezers, you know. And that's about maybe 10 years ago. And it just was floated around and it floated around. And then when it came to do this, we started doing the recording, and my wife Bonnie said, you should call it Elegant. We're looking for a name, you know. I don't know what to call it. It's like, you know, music.
Yeah.
And, well, you're now an elegant geezer. You know, you're a geezer, but you have a little bit of class, you know. You know, and things that are eloquent, you know, you kind of look for special things, or
right.
So we say, well, since we were doing this music kind of like human being-ish, it makes it kind of special. So Elegant Geezer and Elegant Geezer Records.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, gosh, you know, as a session player, producer, band member, you played so you've done so much. You've had everything but be the guy whose name is on the spine of the record. You know, so
it's the only thing left. What else could I do?
What else could you do? Exactly. What inspired you to make a record? I mean, to my ears, it's interesting. It harkens back to a lot of your former band leaders, Bob, Richie Havens, Fred Neil, John Sebastian. It's a very homespun, folksy, intimate record. What inspired this record?
Just wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wanting to do it, and wanting to do it in Israel.
Okay.
You know, and it also got inspired by, I found some guys to play with, you know, in a process. You know, it started with meeting the drummer. You know, we were going out to rent an apartment, and he had another apartment on the other side that he owned, that he had up for rent. And so we went over there and talked to him, and, oh, you're a drummer? Oh, that's cool. You know, he had a little rehearsal spot. We kicked around a little bit. And they said, well, there's a guitar player I had met maybe 10 years prior. And Steve Peskoff, who was a great guitar player. And so we called him up, and so this thing organically, and then we started to play a few gigs. And the guy who did sound, Yehuda Ashish, he not only was a good sound guy, he came up and played some bass. And then I switched over to guitar, and it just like organically developed into this thing. And then I said, well, I'm going for it. Let me, you know, and that was it, you know, and my wife said, if you're going to do it, be you.
Right.
Whatever this is, you know, and it really started with her because Bonnie said, well, look, you know, we were looking to maybe put something on Facebook. So she said, take up the guitar and play something and sing something, and let's see what happens. And it was that first song, What Goes On.
What Goes On, right.
Which has a great groove. And the recording is really well done.
Yeah, well, Yehuda is a master. It's in his little studio in his house, you know, and we just go there, and he just knows what things supposed to sound like, you know, and and we passed it around a lot. There were no, I mean, it was my album, but, and I sort of had the last say, but everybody, contributed real, for real.
Yeah.
And it made it happen. And, and I'm kind of used to, in my world of record making, you go to make it sound real simple.
Right.
You make it sound real simple, like it was effortless, then, it's going to groove, and leave space. And again, my wife came in, she's co-producing as well. She said, I don't want to hear all this stuff. Leave space, stand, be there, and so, and so it happened, and the songs just kind of evolved. They're like, some are things I've seen, some are I've experienced, and the instrumentals are stuff that I've been playing for years.
Okay.
And that's kind of what is very.
So Bonnie was the objective ear, the voice of reason, as a producer?
Yeah, well, it came back and I got to play it for her, and she would tell me, she also helped me write the tunes, in no uncertain terms. And the process over and over again got it to the point we could finally say, okay, we're done.
Okay.
And that was it.
Wow. Wow.
But, the arrangements were basically the drummer, myself, and Yehuda. And, we'd sit and we'd just knock them around for the music.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, David and I, one of the things we always talk about is the album as an art form, and just listening to these songs, there's What Goes On, there's Wrong, there's Bonnie's tune, what else? The Plum, I'm trying to remember, Free Man, No Regrets. I mean, it fits together as a solid piece, not just individual songs. And nowadays we live in the age of streaming, right? We're in playlists. Do you think, having made this record, that the album format still has a place? It's still relevant in the 21st century?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I figured this way. Either I do it or I don't. I certainly cannot compete at 76 years old, and with my musical tastes as they are, can compete with what number one is and what number two is. So, that's not my world. And it's stuff that all the music that they're playing is things that, I played 50, 60 years ago. I mean, these grooves are not new. They're just fatter and louder. I mean, it's not that they're new. It's just that they're less thinking. But, some of it is really well written and well done. But I can only be where I am. And so rather than try to be something I'm not, and taking advantage of the opportunity to make this record and to express myself in this context as the front guy, God bless,
Exactly.
And for the opportunity and from wonderful people. And there's a guy named Ehud Benai, who's a pop star here in Israel, and Danny Sanderson. These are like established Israeli pop stars. And both of them led some of their own stuff, like Ehud on What Goes On. He plays the guitar parts, which are really interesting. And he's a great singer and a great songwriter. He's, if you ever have a chance, check out Ehud Benai and Danny Sanderson. They're really good.
Now, I'm curious, has COVID been difficult in Israel, or have they been able, I mean, obviously you're able to play live and stuff, or is it a little more relaxed, or no? No, we've been, up, we just opened up in terms of taking the masks off.
Okay.
But I mean, up until a couple of weeks ago, we were locked in.
Oh.
I mean, literally locked in 100 meters in any direction, and that was it. So Israel's been very serious about it, but also it's a small country. So we've been able to inoculate and there was like the Haredi and the Arab populations. There were some superstitious kind of things that it's taken them a while to be comfortable with it. And but I think overall Israel's done really well. And but we're just now opening up, saying we just hope that the herd philosophy works. They're opening up to tourists now. And I think we're kind of in the front of it.
Well, that's great. That's great. Good to hear. I'm looking at your Hartke system. Did you have to do any changes because of the voltage?
Well, I got the amp here.
Oh, okay.
So,
It was set.
Larry Harkey set me up over here.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have the new head, it's really small. It's called the, what is it, the 8500? And a couple of 12s. I always loved Hartke's sound. I've tried so many different companies, but I'll always go back to a Hartke or an SVT, one or the other. If someone's lifting it, it'll be an SVT. If I'm lifting it, it'll be a Hartke.
I just think back, some of my setups when I played with some of the bands, the Rhinestones, it was 2 SVTs with 18-inch Sherwin Vega.
Oh gosh, I had one. Yeah.
I mean, and so what do I know? I'm standing in front of it, it's blowing by me. It's just killing the people out front there. But
Yeah.
But give me more. Put more in the. So with Fender it was dual Showmans and
Right.
And even like this now, this is a lot. The amplification and the quality of PAs, of what you can do now is just incredible.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
This thing weighs a ton. The L1000, LH1000, that weighs a ton.
Yeah, it is heavy.
So a lot of times I end up taking a little, what's it called? Galen Kruger, small Galen Kruger.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, this Hartke is 8 pounds. 800 watts.
8 pounds, 800 watts, man. Imagine carrying that up to a 5-floor walk-up, man. That's heavy. 8 pounds.
I think I'll have to talk to Larry about this.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, actually, you could have it's got a handle on it. You could have one of my dogs carrying it up the stairs for me. So I've got a story for you. I want to talk about. It's 1969. I'm still in high school, and I'm working at this clothing store, a hippie boutique on 75th and Broadway called Pandemonium. So the manager one night hands me 2 records and says, "You have to go home and you have to listen to this." One of the records was Eddie Harris, Les McCann, Swiss Movement, and the other was Bitches Brew. So I put on Bitches Brew, I'm listening to the thing, and all of a sudden Spanish Key comes on. That defines my bass playing, because that was so on the one. Just a fabulous, a major inspiration for me.
And me, I never listened to the album that much. And I always thought that it was such a momentous musical thing, and my job on that session was to play bottom. Like Dave and I talked about, Miles' first thing he said, when Miles hired me, it's because he wanted just somebody to be down there and hold it down. And Tio sent me down to a session that he was doing with Betty, his wife at the time.
Right.
And so that got, kind of brought me in, and Miles hired me from that session. And all of these tunes, and I don't remember. How does that go?
That's bum, ba-da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum,
Oh,
ba-dum,
yeah, that one.
ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da.
Oh, yeah. That was it. I mean,
Yeah. Changed
that-
my life, Harvey. Changed my life.
Well, talk about Harvey. Talk about working with Dave Holland, because you mentioned in your book that you actually studied with him.
Yeah.
But talk about the synergy and just working with Dave and how you guys combined electric and upright.
Well, the thing about it, because Dave is a master,
Yes, yeah, sure.
he's a master of the instrument. Now, my definition of the master of the instrument is he has a direct connection from what he's hearing to his ability to play. There's no in between. There's no strings. There's no instrument really. It's that connection.
Yeah.
And me, I'm basically holding on for dear life, as I'm trying to figure out what's going on and find the right thing to do. And the combination of that is because his sensitivities, he was playing this, and the only place I could go was where I was supposed to be, was over here, and hold that down so he could do that.
Yeah.
And he does it so well, and so we were personally comfortable.
Right.
And I wasn't pushing him, he wasn't pushing me out of the way. We were there together, and it changed my whole concept of music, and kind of put me up a bunch of notches. I didn't have I didn't have the nerve to really go on the road with Miles at that time,
Right.
because I didn't feel like I was the master that they were, and a big mistake, I should never do that.
Did Miles want you and Dave to go on the road together?
Well, I think that might have been what it was, but when
Right,
when
okay.
when they talked to me, I was producing at the time, and I had
Right.
a session in California with John Hall,
Right.
which I should have, which I could have said, well, I'll move that out of the way to do the most amazing thing, but I didn't.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because at that time, I mean, that was pretty revolutionary for Miles to bring the electric bass into the jazz, into a jazz platform, because it was not, as David will recall, considered a legitimate instrument. So that was kind of a bold move. And I'm sure the jazz police were very upset that there was an electric bass on a Miles Davis record.
But his wife, Betty,
Yeah.
hooked him up with Hendrix
Right.
and some people like that, and that kind of like opened his head up
Right.
to that, and so when Tio said to me, Harvey, Miles is doing a demo, do you want to go down and play some bass for him, and he wants to try electric.
Okay.
So really? So I'll be there, and so that, that was it. I went down, and we sparred around a little bit, and after the session, he invited me on to the album. So I've had these opportunities. I've been there,
Mhm.
in the beginning of a lot of things, and people have taken it further, but somehow I ended up being there, and I was very happy for the opportunity and be able to take advantage of it and, contribute, in a positive way. And if I could inspire somebody else, as I've been inspired by so many, just to be in that line of inspirers, is a privilege.
Yeah.
You were the first. You were the first, like I would say, not legitimate, or bona fide electric bassist to play with Miles, because I think on Miles in the Sky, I think Ron Carter played electric on maybe one or two tunes, and then Philly de Kilimanjaro he did. But of course, Ron not an electric. You were the first real electric player to get in the pocket with Miles.
You know, it was funny, you know, in sitting, I did, I think, Great Expectations,
Okay.
Right.
I think with Ron Carter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're interviewing him, I think Friday.
Yeah, now he's, you know, he's like an idol, you know, and standing next to him, and I'm feeling like an electric bass player next to Ron Carter, you know, so it was kind of weird for me, you know, in a way, but I did my thing, you know, I did my thing, and you know, he acknowledged me. We didn't talk much, but he acknowledged me. So Ron, you're all right in my book.
Well, I guess a lot of upright players probably felt intimidated by the electric bass because music was changing. Soul, rhythm, and blues now were coming to the forefront. And really, Quincy Jones even said it in one of his interviews that aside from recording technology, the development of the electric bass was probably one of the most profound developments in 20th century music.
Yeah, well, because, you know, the bass plays such an important role in the music in such a subtle way. You know, it controls the harmony, controls the rhythm, you know, controls the spaces, you know, and it's not, you know, when it was just playing percussion, you know, the upright, you know, before it was amplified to the point where it could make its statement clear. But up until that time, you know, you really couldn't hear that. But,
Right.
you know, once those notes, those bottom notes started to happen and the harmonics, you know, started to happen, and all of a sudden those spaces, you know, it was important for those bass notes to be just right and time-wise, mathematically correct. And
Right.
and then, you know, as of course everything else, as the electric bass developed, it kind of lost its character, and now it's kind of like in that same place as any other kind of instrument or book or device.
Right.
It's been improved and improved and improved, and there's been so many ways to learn quicker and quicker and master it, and to the point where it's, again, you know, you kind of lose the essence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess another thing of, you know, the idea of doing an album of, you know, more of the basic feelings is for that.
Yeah. 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 It's bringing
You
it
know,
all
you
back
think
home.
about with the quote unquote chops mongers and how
Trade show chops, right?
yeah, where you know but you can't swing, and for me, I think as a young bassist coming up, right along the same time that the Jackos and the Stanley Clarks,
Right.
your mind is going, I got to be the fastest bass player. I got to do this. I got to do that. But as you grow older and as you either lose gigs because of that busyness,
Right.
or are told, play that at home, play the groove, you begin to understand and you see so much more how important the basics really are. And you know, and in this mind, what's going on now, you have so many synth bass players who are keyboard players with very, very fast left hands. You just want to take a meat cleaver and go, nope,
A
nope.
meat cleaver.
Let me do my job, not to be confused with beaver cleaver.
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting, Harvey. Going back to your career, we spoke with your British counterpart, Mo Foster, who I'm sure you know in the UK. Mo did, thousands of sessions. He, you know, back in 1965, when around the time you started, the electric bass, people didn't know what to do with it. Mo tells us a story where he played with the London Symphony Orchestra before he knew how to read music. And the orchestra conductor just let him play freely because he did not know what the instrument did. Take us back when you were playing. I mean, obviously you had Duck and Jamerson were your peers and things, but what was your approach? Because there was really no role models that came before you.
Well, my approach really came out of Atlantic Records.
Okay.
You know, Atlantic Records, I mean, the first gigs I remember playing, we played two types of things. Things where the front man, his name was Joey Villa or something like that all the time.
Right.
And we played sort of like trumpet player, what's his name? Oh, man, this Louis Prima. Now, I played countless Louis Prima type gigs.
Yeah.
And I play up in the Bourse circuit,
Right.
and I played around town, and it was that, or it was Wilson Pickett, or my first tour was with the Exciters.
Right, right.
You know, which is all in the book.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know that stuff, and I was playing in every funky R&B place there was on, you know, up and down the East Coast when I was like 18 and 19 and 20. And so like, and then I started playing, you know, in Manhattan in the Greenwich Village and all those little bars, and it was R&B.
Right.
Yeah.
R&B that was my foundation. When I got the folk music thing was with Bob Dylan. Al Cooper got me the gig.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I was a folk rock bass player, me and Felix Papalardi.
Right. Right.
Felix was amazing.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
But, you know, but that, you know, that was my in. And so I just started playing around town down there, playing with Richie Havens and becoming spontaneous. Like I'd be the house bass player. I'd be sitting, I'd be there and Richie needed somebody to play bass. I was there. Eric Anderson or who, you know, whoever it was. And then I got gigs from that. You know, Arthur Gorson managed a bunch of these people.
Right.
And I got gigs from him. And so that continuum started. And then simultaneously, Bloomfield talked, since I met him on the Dylan sessions,
Right.
talked to me and we got onto the Electric Flag
Right.
concept. And again, this is like opportunities, being able to take advantage of them, and one opportunity leading to another opportunity. And then Buddy Miles at Murray the K Show.
Right. You stole the drummer. You stole.
The drummer, you know, and then went out to California. And
Right.
but in California, the influences were Coltrane, James Brown, Otis Redding, and that was the thought behind the feel of the Electric Flag Band. And again, so there I'm playing Duck Dunn,
Yeah.
and you know, just all the great New York bass players at that time.
Chuck Rainey. Yeah.
Rainey,
Jerry Jamont.
Jerry Jamont.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, you know, Jerry Jamont was with King Curtis.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, and so
Huge influence on Jocko. Yeah.
Was that?
Huge influence on Jocko. He plays homage to Jerry Jamont. Yeah.
Now, Jocko started with CC
Wayne Cochran. Yeah.
Wayne Cochran.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, like, I when I first met Jocko, you know, Jocko did one of those things to me. He said, "Oh man," he said, "you know, you're one of my real influences. You know, when I played with Wayne Cochran, you know, and I used to listen to you, and I never fully put that together because time-wise, but
Right.
I'm not going to argue with Jocko." And just amazing, amazing bass player. But, you know, like he actually laid it out. He was the first one to really lay it out as a dynamic instrument that can do everything and not really be overdone. I mean, he stayed musical and harmonically incredible.
You're so right. You're so right. And what's interesting is I wish more people knew that, you know, besides being an amazing bass player, what he really was, he was an incredible composer.
Yeah.
And so many of his songs, and you could hear his composing and his bass lines. No, I think Charles Mingus is very similar in a lot of ways.
I mean, Charles Mingus is the icon.
Yeah.
I read his book,
Beneath the Underdog.
The Underdog.
Yeah.
You know, and he took no prisoners, but like, you know, talk about the struggle to play and make music, you know, and Mingus, just the songs, you know, just he was able to take on the politics of it and not be questioned.
Exactly.
You know, to be affirmative and powerful, you know.
Yeah, I remember in the book you were talking about fables, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are fun. Yeah. I mean, you know, I have like 4 or 5 different versions of that, you know, and every one of them is. I just love the album where he's like making believe he's in a club, you know, and he's playing all these tunes, and just inspiring. You know?
And he too, like Jocko, was a hell of a piano player. As a matter of fact, there's a great Mingus plays piano. I think it's on Impulse. Just a fabulous record of incredible improvisations and such.
He did some of that on Columbia also.
Okay. It's hard to believe Mitch Miller was a producer there during that time.
You know, it's sort of like they had 3 or 4 guys like that, but they were like music business guys. But Mitch Miller, I think he had someone he had some dirt on or something, you know, to have been in there that long doing that.
Yeah.
With somewhat other talent around. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to think of him as a producer. You just think of him as and a 1 and a 2.
Now, he and Lawrence Wall could have been dance partners, you know. But you know, I have to say that the thing, you know, in writing the book and going through, it's like a very strange experience, you know. As it is, you know, memory comes in and comes out.
Right, sure, everybody. Yeah.
But in doing that, you know, Frank Beecham he's a musical historian. He, you know, really helped on the book. And between him and Bonnie, we would like bouncing all the stuff around. To go through that in your life, you know, to have experienced a lot of things. I mean, I'm not unique, obviously, right. But in terms of, and then trying to talk about it and put it down on paper and bring out those things and remembering the details and, you know, what you said and what you should have said and what you didn't say, what you did and what you shouldn't have done and what you should have done. It's pretty much an incredible process. And, you know, and this became more or less a life story, and also with my wife making a life, a purposeful life, you know, and what it took for me to get to that place and to stay alive. You know, because
it's such a great history lesson, that book. You know, and Tom and I always talk about the music business was still so young. No one knew what they were doing. So everyone was just doing what they thought was right.
Yes, absolutely.
And ultimately, it became the right thing. Now you got all these bean counters thinking, we know how to do this, we know how to do that. And it's just not. In its own way, the punk movement in the 70s was a way to get back to independent record companies and such. I mean, now you have independent record companies because of streaming. It's a different thing. But I think at the beginning of our conversation, you're right. It'll never be that again. It unfortunately.
No, it's just not. It's not set up for that. The only way. I think the thing that will happen is young entrepreneurs or entertainment facilities will be created, and musicians will be playing mostly not for money.
Right.
will be playing for the music
Right.
because they can't afford to pay for the music, you know, and the venues that can, you know, will be bigger, you know, although we don't know what it's going to be like with viruses and stuff like that. You know, people have to put out a lot of money to create venues.
Sure.
I mean,
Liability, yeah.
nobody really knows what it's going to be. So, you know, and the people who have a grip on making money, from what I understand, there's not a lot of money to be made in streaming. You know, the more your music is played, the less money is available, is what I've been told. You know, you sell an album now on iTunes and it's $7.99.
Right.
So it's, you know, I have no idea. So for the love of the music really becomes more and more urgent, and I think those are going to be the survivors. You know, if it's
Well, what scares me about that is, you know, I think back to my youth. I was not going to take a job. I was going to play the bass. I was going to make it somehow, whether it meant eating bagels at H&H Bagels 3 times a day, or what have you. Fortunately, there was studio work. There were demos to be made.
Different world, yeah.
A totally different world. If musicians, quote unquote, like me, end up taking jobs to survive, their playing is going to suffer immeasurably. What could happen in 2 years could end up taking 6 or 8. So it really, and there comes the sampling again. Well, I don't have to learn to play an instrument. I just need to cut this 4-bar phrase.
right.
Well, that's of course, that's the debate we have with you know, the difference between analog and digital recording. With analog, you had to master your instrument because you didn't want to wear out the tape. And now with digital recording, of course, it's changed the art form of the bass in the sense, because now you don't have to nail the track. You can just pretty much cut and paste it. And you find now that a lot of musicians, when we interview them, at least when I do with the younger ones, bass is one of 5 instruments they play because it's all been digitized. So it's not the same. They don't pour the same amount of energy and passion into that one instrument. So, you know, it affects a lot of things. But I guess you could say probably the one good thing the artist has with digital technology is that they can go directly to an audience. They don't have to go through the gatekeeper of a record company. Because when I look back at your work, and you know, as you mentioned in the book, you know, the stuff you did, Electric Flag, Super Sessions, there was artistic freedom. You can meld rock, jazz, blues, and folk. The old generation thought, hey, maybe the kids will buy it, you know. And looking now, 60 years later, we still listen to those records.
Yeah, I mean, you know, high on my list are Horace Silver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I want to really sense the music, I put on like some of Horace's stuff, and it just grabs you. It's funky, and you know, and it grabs you. If I come, you know, like I'll listen to Santana, old Santana sometimes, but I find I keep going back to the old jazz because that's kind of what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of new music that I like, that I listen to, but I have no idea what it is. Like I'll put it on, and I don't really take it that seriously because it kind of all sounds the same to me. One of 2 or 3 different progressions.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that old fogey-ish, but you know.
But you know, I think part of that is due to streaming. So, for instance, when you hear whether it be Song for Your Father or Cape Verdean Blues, you know immediately who that is.
You know who it is.
You put on Blue Train, you know exactly who that is. And with a lot of the modern music, you're hearing so many influences, you can't be certain.
You know, and also the thing, being that things are so confused now in the world in general, in the global, you want to get as much good stuff, and you can't find good news, on the on news programs or in this. So let's make some good music, and I'm at the point now with the bass where I'm just finding I'm finding more and more reasons to write, I think the place I'm in now, I've got the book out, I've got the record, the album, the project, whatever we call it at this point, and and I'm looking, I'm looking for other places to put my music, and that's kind of it for me. I find that the more I practice, which I still do, and I'm still learning the instrument. I'm working on also playing fretless.
Okay.
Because it didn't come on this one, but maybe in the future. And just having a wonderful family here in Jerusalem. I have a beautiful family, grandchildren, grandkids. I have an amazing wife. I have just, I'm blessed tremendously that way. And that in itself is a huge, important place to be in life, and I've been blessed to have the experiences that I have, and hopefully it'll go on so I can see some of the grandkids and some of the great grandkids play some music too.
Yeah.
But that's I'm a very lucky guy that way.
Yeah. You were talking about fretless. It's interesting to be in Israel, where there are so many other influences, Arabian music and all these other things. It really does lend itself to that fretless.
Quarter tones, and now the ability to play quarter tones, and and the Oriental scales, harmonic minor is a big one.
Yeah.
But the things I've learned some things that I'm working on. A lot of the Arab music, they play these detailed lines, but all in unison.
Oh, okay.
All in unison, and it's like amazingly powerful.
Oh, I bet.
And a lot of the Israeli, just a combination of the Oriental and Arabic, Moroccan sounds, and so this is a whole other thing. I'm here being completely American. I'm an American in Israel. I'm now an Israeli American, and I've been here for 12 years, and best thing I ever did for me, and actually under my wife's direction. She'd been coming here for years and years and years, and I caught the Zionist part of it from her, and just great, and it gives me the ability to be in another frame of mind. I can't, in America now, it's kind of all going around in circles.
Yeah.
Around circles. It's kind of hard to get outside of that, and with the COVID, it's extremely, nobody knows what's happening. Okay, buddy. Okay, I get it. That's Atticus. He says, he talked enough. Bullshit. So, but in saying, I really appreciate talking to you guys and talking about my book and Elegant Giza Jerusalem Sessions. And I hope people out there, go out and grab it and buy the book and tune in with us on the further adventures of Harvey Brooks and
Atticus, we hear in the background.
Atticus.
No, that was Godfrey who was just barking.
Oh, was that part?
One of mine.
Yeah, probably started on.
There he goes.
There he goes.
So Harvey, to wrap up, what Harvey tracks? I would like to play all of Super Sessions. I think that to me is the perfect bass album. You did that. Can you I just want to know the synergy between all the people, you know, Mike and Stephen Stills and Al. That record is just so damn smooth. I'm gonna guess first takes, second takes on all the tracks.
Oh, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, we did the whole album in 2 days.
Mhm.
You know, and then some overdubbing that Al did in New York.
Yeah.
But basically, Michael's half of the album was just Michael, you know, Michael and Al, you know, doing the songs he wanted to do,
Right.
and Michael being Michael. And it just locked, you know, I mean, also, you know, we've been playing together.
Sure. That helps.
But the idea was not letting it get too intellectual, which it wasn't, and just let it flow. Now, I mean, Al did a genius job on it, because when Michael left,
Right.
we had like, I don't know, 4 or 5 tracks. I don't remember, 3, 4 tracks. When Michael left, you know, Al was able to come up with the right guy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And Stills came in, and Stills, it made it a great album. I think it made it a greater album than it would have been, you know, had Michael not left.
Right.
You know, because it added a whole other character to it. You know, and Eddie Ho and myself, we were just kind of like, we had never played together, but you know, I walked in and I started tuning my bass, and he started tuning his drums. You know, and it was like, woo, you know, like the tuning just kind of locked in. So, you know, right away we were comfortable playing back and forth. And, you know, the synergy of it was the excitement, you know, and the desire to make the shit happen.
Yeah.
And not beat it to death, you know, and it's easy in that circumstance to beat it to death, because you, oh no, well this wasn't right here, that wasn't right there.
Right. Right.
Everybody was pretty on, and so I think that's kind of it. A Season of the Witch, classic. You know?
Yeah.
Well, listen, you know, Allison Steele used to play that almost every night.
I mean, it was a lot. To do the album was a lot of fun, because it was painless.
Yeah.
Except for the emotional.
China, go on.
Okay.
Marilyn, goodbye. Get out.
Speak the same
I got
language.
2
We
monsters.
speak the same way, Atticus. We should put them on the Why Listen to Us.
Yeah.
They have a lot more to talk about. Hey, Godfrey, downstairs. Goodbye.
He's talking Super Sessions. Come on.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Atticus. Big white dog also. A Kanani.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are some of the tracks you reflect on that you'd like us to share with the audience from the new record?
I would say What Goes On,
Okay.
Bonnie's Tune,
Right.
and The Plum,
Okay.
and Wrong, Free Man, and Fagey, which is a nice instrumental about my
Yeah, that's a
mom,
beautiful tune. Yeah.
about my mom, who was always there. Can't Smoke No More, which is just kind of like fun.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
As a smoker, you know, and I think like that.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, Bonnie's Tune is kind of like in my heart tune.
Yeah.
You know, but I'll leave it up to you.
Okay.
But you got to
Well,
play.
Harvey, it's been wonderful seeing you and speaking with you. We'll let you know when it's going to be broadcast. I'll do some editing and throwing the music in, and we'll get you updated on the date it's going to go out. Probably it'll be a couple of weeks.
Wonderful. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with some folks who speak the same language.
Absolutely.
All right, Harvey, be well. And regards to Bonnie.